Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to a Bitcoin update. I cannot stress to you how important the Bitcoin charts are right now. We've seen further developments from our video yesterday. And, from our video yesterday, if you watched it, you'd know that Bitcoin's in a very, very intense position. We are pressing up against major resistance here, and we're seeing further compression. We've started testing an RSI line. We've formed a microstructure here that could be breaking within 6 to 8 hours. We could be seeing a move very, very shortly, like today. And then also we need to get into some community questions. We've got questions ranging from, what price do I think Bitcoin will top out in this bull market? When do I think Bitcoin will top out? What am I thinking about altcoins, specific altcoins, things like that? I'll answer some of those questions, not all of them, but some of them that I choose out that I think I can answer to a certain, to a certain useful degree. So that's the second half of the video, but the first half of the video is going to be Bitcoin TA. Before we get into that though, check out the VIP group on Telegram. We trade altcoins on VIP. We do altcoin trading signals posted into that VIP group 4 to 5 times a week. We've got a 77.51% win rate over the course of 18 months of trading results. So that's very good track record there, very good trading history. It's all transparent, it's all open in a PDF document. You can check that out if you're interested in the link below. Let's get into the content. Okay. What is important about Bitcoin right now? Okay, without repeating myself too much, because we literally did an extensive deep dive into this yesterday, let's just briefly go over a few things that are very important. First and foremost, okay, what is this range? The range, in my opinion, stems from 61K to 72K. All right, 72K being the red resistance box on the screen, and 61K being the lowest line right here. Now, the reason I don't think the range extends all the way to 73K, which is the all-time high, and 57K is because 57K was a justified deviation. We went that low to test levels that were dynamic support levels. For example, bull market support band. For example, Pi cycle center lines. The only reason we went down lower than 61K is to test those support levels. So I don't really see that as a major part of the range for all intents and purposes. And for all intents and purposes, I actually don't see 73K as a major part of the range as well, because 73K is very clearly a deviated wick to the upside. The actual resistance, the bulk of the resistance, is stemming quite clearly from the red resistance box between 71.2 and 72K. So for all intensive purposes, I mean, yeah, if you wanted to be precise about it, you could say the range is between 73 and 57, but for all intensive purposes and for everything that actually matters, it's between 61 and 72. And furthermore, if we want to be very, very precise about it, we could actually say that the range that matters right now here today is actually between 67, which is this line right here, and the red rectangle at 72, because this is a very important mid-range support level. We can see it very clearly acted as resistance over here, over here, over here. We've gotten above it, we've flipped it for support. Now it's been acting as support for the last month or so, and we sprung upwards off of that level to test the red resistance box. So if we want to be precise about this range, let's actually delete everything and just see what's important. Here on the screen right now, this is what's important about the price range: 67K, 72K, and a bunch of yellow lines. That's all we really need to be looking at right now. We also need to be looking at, very importantly, the RSI daily chart. Okay, daily chart RSI has a very important resistance line. And as you can see, it's edging to an upside break at the moment. It's looking quite good, but it hasn't quite broken upwards yet. It depends how you draw the line. You could draw it touching this wick over here in May, or you could draw it touching the wick here today. I don't think it's a breakout yet, but it's edging towards a breakout. The reason why this line matters is because, historically speaking, well, of course, right, we're testing resistance on the price chart via diagonal resistance and also horizontal resistance. And historically, it's just a fact that if you have an RSI resistance line that is relative to the price resistance lines, which in this case it is, if that RSI resistance line breaks to the upside, it becomes extremely likely that the price resistance lines will break to the upside as well. So we're watching the RSI very closely as a potential way to front run the breakout. But currently, nothing's happened yet. There hasn't been a breakout. And let me be very clear again, right? If we do break this 72K level, we will be breaching all-time highs, and we will be starting a parabolic bull market for Bitcoin and cryptocurrency as a whole. I mean, that's not surprising. All we need to do is go to the total 3 cryptocurrency market cap chart and look at the historical patterns. The historical patterns are extremely clear. This is a chart that I've spent a lot of time looking at over the past couple of months. We can see very clearly that we are copying the 5-step pattern from the last cycle very clearly, okay? And in the last cycle, the 4th step of that pattern, this one right here, was the final consolidation before altcoin season began, and the bull market in reality began properly, and we breached all-time highs, okay? So we're on the 4th step right now. We're copying the exact same pattern. The 4th step was the last step before breaching all-time highs, entering a parabolic euphoric bull market. We're on that 4th step right now. So Bitcoin coming upwards and breaching all-time highs will lead to that 4th step being complete, and will lead to that parabolic bull market on the altcoin market cap chart, and of course, as a result, the Bitcoin chart, Ethereum, or every coin, crypto market in general. So really, if we're trying to be precise about what this level is, this 72K level, it's not just a range-bound resistance zone. It's actually a macro resistance zone, because breaking this level will lead to breaking the macro resistance at 73K. But it's also kind of like the final hurdle before we enter an altcoin season, if we're using the historical trends as gospel, and we should be doing that because that's the only thing we have. Okay, so very, very important level. And if we're zooming upwards, we go to perhaps the 4-hourly chart, we can see very clearly there is compression here. There is a dotted, I've got it dotted because it's not fully, it's been faked out below before, so it's not like a perfectly precise support line. But you can see very clearly there is a dotted support line here in yellow that is compressing against the red box, compressing against the yellow resistance line. And we can see that compression is coming to an apex around the 13th of June, meaning we don't have long left to decide here. You know, it's either Bitcoin breaks out, in terms of when Bitcoin will break out above the red resistance level or below, back downwards. We've got not long to decide, right? The compression is coming to an end quite shortly. We've got one kind of longer term compression line, the dotted yellow line here, coming to an apex around the 13th of June. And if we go to the short term charts, the 15-minute chart, we can even see we have a short-term compression line compressing against that red resistance box and also that yellow resistance line. And that will be happening within the end of today. Okay, so the fact of the matter is we've got major compression here. We could actually be moving today on Bitcoin. If we don't move today, we'll come back down, we'll break downwards, we'll go down, test support, and then we'll be moving by the end of the week, essentially. So, it's either going to be today or the end of the week. It's coming very, very shortly. What we don't want to be seeing Bitcoin do, right, against, what's kind of the worst scenario here that Bitcoin could do? Well, the worst scenario is coming down and breaking below 67K. If we break below 67K, we're re-entering the downside of this range. So this is the entire price range I've just circled, all right? The entire price range right here. There's the upper side of the range above 67K, and there's the downside of the range below 67K. We spent a month and a half on that downside of the range, rejecting from 67K. We've finally got above it. We've finally tested that level for support. We've finally gone upwards. We're attacking to the upside. If we drop back down below 67K, that is very bad news, because we're re-entering the downside of the range after failing to break upwards above the macro range itself. So Bitcoin, to be honest, really needs to stay above 67 at all costs, essentially. Other than that, there's not really much we need to stay above. As long as we're above 67, we're fine. We're in a pretty decent position. But it would be great to hold on to these dynamic support lines. It would be great to hold on to this diagonal support line here. And more specifically, it'd be great to hold on to the dotted yellow support line rather than coming all the way back down and testing 67K again, because that would form a double top formation. So I hope this analysis makes sense. It's been quite a confusing analysis. I understand that. It is quite a confusing range. There's a lot of things to be said about it. But fundamentally, if we're just really going to break it down to the nitty gritty, what actually matters here? Very clearly what matters is this red resistance box, 72K and 67K. 72, 67. Those are the only numbers you need to remember. If you wake up and you see Bitcoin above 72, excellent. If you wake up and you see Bitcoin seeing a continued drop below 67 or that vague price region, that's bad. That's really everything you need to know in one sentence wrapped up. But yeah, of course, there's a lot more nuance, and I've got into some of that nuance, and I hope you understood it. It was a bit complex at times, I understand that, but hopefully you got a pretty good grasp on what I was saying there. Now that we've understood the Bitcoin charts, there's really not much else to say about it. That's the very simple, very basic analysis, or as basic as I can give you. Essentially 72K, 68K, and probably, important breakouts, maybe even today, if not by the end of the week, right? So very, very important stuff coming up very, very shortly. And this very well could trigger the macro bull market. This very well could trigger the parabolic phase of the macro bull market, the altcoin season of the macro bull market. It could be starting within days if we break upwards here. So, I can't stress how important this price range is. And I think I stressed it pretty well. So without further ado, let's get into some community questions, right? The second half of the video. But before we do that, just, a quick couple little things. Exchanges. If you need an exchange to buy and sell cryptocurrency on at low cost, okay, that has never been hacked before, so historically secure and low cost exchange, we've got the Bitunix exchange, we've got BingX, and we've got BitGet. All of them fit different niches. My referral links are down below. With those referral links, you'll get 15% trading fee discounts for life on those exchanges. So simply go down below, pick an exchange depending on what you want, use my referral link, sign up, and you get 15% trading fee discount for life, as well as being on a very good exchange that has never been hacked before and is very low in trading fees. So check those out if you're interested. Let's get back into it. We've got some community questions here. All right, you guys have been posting away for a couple of days now, so let's get into answering some of them. Now, by the way, if you want answers to these questions that I have just highlighted on the screen, go and watch yesterday's video. I answered those specific questions in yesterday's video. I'm going to pick just a few of these and give some brief answers. The exact price and date of the Bitcoin top. Now, obviously, that's an impossible question to answer, especially in this cycle, because the 4-year cycle has seen some preliminary deviations. So previously, if you asked me this a year ago, I would have said it would be October 2025, but now that we've seen some preliminary deviations, the 4-year cycle is not as reliable. And so now I've actually made a couple of videos on this topic. I made a video, I highly suggest you watch it. Bitcoin, these hidden trends could reveal the market top. I made that 4 weeks ago. I discussed this question quite extensively, and ultimately we came to a conclusion that at this point in time, the data suggests the most likely date and top price of Bitcoin would be between around November this year to February next year, and around that 110 to 130k price region. That is the most likely, but it's very much worth noting that I don't have any strong convictions about this question, because we've seen the deviations from the 4-year cycle, and because I understand the 4-year cycle is really the only way in which we can get a strong conviction about this question. Given all the data that encompasses the 4-year cycle, I'm kind of left with weak analysis. But if you want the answer, that weak analysis does suggest between around 110 to 130k between around November this year, February next year. But again, I wouldn't really say that's a prediction, because I'm not really confident enough in it to be a prediction, but it's useful to say the least. And look, in this video, I give you some structural trends as well that will help you kind of play the market, even without really knowing exactly where that top's going to be. It will help you know when to sell, when to buy, things like that. So watch that video, it's very important. Moving forward. What are my exit strategies for altcoins? He asks for specific price predictions on altcoins. I'm not going to give you those. That would be more in-depth analysis, and I'd have to know the specific coin. And also, to be frank with you, if you're sitting here on YouTube asking for specific altcoin price predictions, I will just inform you that no one really knows when it comes to altcoins. If we don't really know when it comes to Bitcoin, how the hell are we going to know when it comes to Link? You know what I mean? So be very careful with price predictions when it comes to altcoins, because 95% of the time, there's not enough historical data to come to any firm conclusion whatsoever, and even any loose conclusion. It's just guessing. Right? At least with Bitcoin, we have some historical data, and even then, we don't have much. We only have like a decade, right? So be very careful when it comes to altcoin price predictions. I guarantee you 9 times out of 10, probably 99 times out of 10, you're going to be severely disappointed, or severely wrong at least. Maybe your prediction will be surpassed, but you'll still be very, very wrong. So yeah, be careful with predictions. But in terms of reactions, in terms of how to take profits on altcoins in a bull market, very, very simple, really. I mean, if we overlay, and this is what we've done here, by the way, orange is the Bitcoin price chart, and in the candles, that is the total 3 cryptocurrency market cap. So this is the altcoin market cap chart with the Bitcoin price chart overlaid. And we can see very clearly that in 2018's bull market, Bitcoin altcoins ran up for an extra few weeks after the Bitcoin top, but in 2021, they topped out together. So for the most part, they top out together. That's the reality, right? So for the most part, they top out together, and therefore, for the most part, obviously there's some deviation. Like in 2018, we had a few weeks of deviation, but in 2021, they topped out together. So, but in general, you basically want to be taking profits on altcoins and Bitcoin around the same time, meaning that Bitcoin is still controlling the market. Bitcoin is still the leader of the market. There can be some delay. But again, for the most part, when Bitcoin tops out or when Bitcoin sees its first breakdown, that's really when you want to be getting out of altcoins. And there is a distinction there, you know. I'm not, because the only way to know that Bitcoin has ended the bull market is when it breaks down. You don't know Bitcoin's ended the bull market when it reaches its top. You know Bitcoin's ended the bull market when it sees a macro breakdown from the range it was at its top. So realistically, you actually want to be selling altcoins upon the Bitcoin breakdown for your best possible risk-reward ratio. And the reason you want to be selling on the breakdown is so you can avoid getting scammed and selling before a correction that actually just leads to new all-time highs. Hope that makes sense. But obviously we're going to get into that very extensively when the time comes, right? But I think that's a pretty good answer. Let's get into another question here. We have a question about inflation-adjusted Bitcoin charts. Should we be adjusting the Bitcoin chart to inflation? And therefore, is the 4-year cycle still intact? Because he's saying that Bitcoin would not have reached all-time highs right now if it was for the inflation-adjusted charts, and therefore the 4-year cycle could still be intact because Bitcoin will not have reached all-time highs. And of course, historically speaking, it's not meant to have reached all-time highs this early. So first and foremost, a couple of points here. First point is the Bitcoin deviations from the 4-year cycle theory. Yes, they are price-based, but they also are date-based. And it doesn't matter how much you adjust for inflation, those date-based deviations are still going to be there. And what I mean by that is we moved too early. It doesn't matter where we moved to. It doesn't matter if we moved to the all-time high. We moved too early. We should not even be above 49K right now on Bitcoin. All right. And unless the inflation-adjusted chart takes us below 49K, it's not going to do anything. Right. The deviations started too early due to the ETF narrative. It doesn't really, okay, it does matter to an extent where they took us. Yeah, we shouldn't necessarily be above all-time highs. Yes, with the inflation-adjusted charts, we wouldn't be above all-time highs, but we shouldn't even be above 49K. Okay, that's the simple reality. We should be breaching 49K around August, and it's June, and we breached 49K in February. So we're very significantly deviated on a date range basis. Doesn't really matter what happens on a price range basis. And also, second point is, no, we shouldn't be focused on inflation-adjusted charts in general because the market moves because people are buying and selling based on the price chart. They're not buying and selling based on the inflation-adjusted charts. And if you look at the inflation-adjusted charts and you try to do TA on them, you try to do resistance and support levels on a macro scale, you'll find the lines don't work. It doesn't add up because no one's actually reacting to those charts. They're reacting to the price charts, hence why the lines work on the price charts, the regular price charts. So inflation-adjusted charts are not the way to go. That generally speaking is a way people use to conceptualize inflation or to just kind of use a chart to kind of fit their bias, really. I've seen it many times before. It's not how actual analysts do TA. You're not meant to do TA on an inflation-adjusted chart. It's just not how it works because people aren't watching that, plain and simple. And the market moves based on what people are watching. Very simple stuff. Martin is asking for clarification about crypto money flow. So how money flows in cryptocurrency, when you should best be positioned in altcoins, when in Bitcoin, when in Ethereum, when should you be holding what? That's kind of what he's asking. This is a question we've looked into many times before. We can use the Bitcoin dominance chart to answer this quite well. Bitcoin dominance chart is a chart that displays the percentage of cryptocurrency money or of USD in Bitcoin versus in altcoins. So how many dollars are in Bitcoin? How many dollars are in altcoins? What is the percentage? Okay. And how is that moving? So when this chart moves upwards, it means that Bitcoin is gaining dominance, meaning Bitcoin is outperforming altcoins. And when this chart moves downwards, we're seeing an altcoin season, which is when altcoins are outperforming Bitcoin. So it's very simple. You want to position yourself in Bitcoin when Bitcoin dominance is going upwards, and position yourself in altcoins when altcoin dominance is going upwards, meaning when Bitcoin dominance is going downwards. Okay, and there's a way, there's a function to this. There's a way it works. It's called the crypto money cycle flow. Essentially, people start out in Bitcoin in a bear market or in the initial run-ups of the bull market. As the market starts heating up, people get a little bit greedy. They flip their money from Bitcoin into altcoins. They're seeking higher returns. Then we enter the parabolic stage, and that's when we see people flip their money into altcoins straight away, even just skipping Bitcoin altogether and just going straight into altcoins for the, you know, as many returns as possible. That's called an altcoin season. That's the parabolic phase of the bull market. That's when people are making huge amounts of money. That's when cryptocurrency is everywhere. That's when your Uber driver knows about cryptocurrency, okay? That's called the altcoin season. And then everything crashes. Altcoins top out, Bitcoin tops out, everything starts going down as we enter a bear market, and people flip their money from altcoins into fiat and withdraw it into their bank account or put it back into Bitcoin. In which case Bitcoin dominance rises. So again, conceptualizing this on the Bitcoin dominance chart, when Bitcoin dominance is dropping, that lines up with a parabolic altcoin season. When Bitcoin dominance is rising, it's generally a bear market or the initial phases of the bull market, which is exactly what we're seeing right now. Bitcoin dominance has been rising throughout the bear market, and now it's still rising in the initial phases of the bull market, but it's seeing signs of topping out, and it likely has topped out, or at least will top out very soon, in which case the altcoin season will start off, and we'll see that parabolic bull market ensue. So you want to position yourself at the pivot points, okay? That's the goal. You know, when Bitcoin dominance bottoms out, when the altcoin season ends, that's when you want to be getting into fiat or into Bitcoin, and you want to be, you know, having Bitcoin throughout Bitcoin dominance rising in an uptrend, because that is very much a mathematical representation of Bitcoin outperforming altcoins on a generalized scale. Are you going to see exceptions? Yes, you are. But the reason why in the last couple of months, or the last 6 months even, for the most part, you know, since October really, 8 months, and, you know, because Bitcoin dominance has pretty much been more or less topped out for the last 8 months. Not quite, but it's been moving upwards very, very slowly. You know, we've been saying on this YouTube channel, it's time to start accumulating altcoins. It's time to start developing altcoin plans, because we're waiting for that pivot point. We're waiting for Bitcoin dominance to swing downwards, and it probably will be happening quite shortly. So around the pivot points, that's when you switch. You know, if altcoin season ensues and we start bottoming out on Bitcoin dominance, around that pivot point, that's when you want to get into fiat or get into Bitcoin, most likely get into fiat, right? Then hold your fiat and invest in Bitcoin when the market's actually bottomed out. Yeah, pivot points is when you want to be switching around. Right now, as of current, the better investment is altcoins rather than Bitcoin, currently, based on the Bitcoin dominance chart and based on the historical trends. Moving forward, we'll do a couple more questions maybe. Another question just extending on that Bitcoin dominance analysis. I accidentally clicked on his channel. Let's go back to his question here. It was, has altcoin season started already? My alts from the previous cycle haven't even reached 50% of their all-time highs. Well, your first mistake is holding alts throughout a bear market. Altcoins are very much swing trades. I do not believe in long-term altcoin holding. Altcoins, in my opinion, are something you hold throughout the parabolic phase of the bull market and then get rid of them immediately. Do not fall in love with your altcoins. They are very unlikely to survive cycle to cycle. Altcoins have a terrible success rate cycle to cycle. They usually last 1 or 2 cycles and then die off forever. That's the historical trend with altcoins. But has altcoin season started? Not necessarily. I mean, Bitcoin dominance has topped out. So, well, look, it's hard to say whether it actually has. You know, we could have one more swing to the upside, but I'm talking on a macro scale. It's more or less topped out if we're using the historical trends. So yeah, I mean, technically you could say it started, or perhaps it's starting soon, or perhaps one more leg then it starts. But no, not really. We haven't seen the actual proper breakdown like we saw in prior bull markets yet. So altcoin season has not yet begun properly. It's threatening to begin, and that's why now is the time you need to be pivoting your portfolio. But no, it's not begun properly. Yeah, moving forward. How do I see Bitcoin bull markets in the future? Well, I'll tell you this right now. And again, we're going to get into some of these questions tomorrow. Again, there's too many here to answer in this video, but I'll tell you this right now. If we do break the 4-year cycle, if the 4-year cycle does not work, and what I mean by that is if we do not top out in October 2025, if we top out anywhere else, you know, that is not October 2025, it's very likely that we'll never see traditional 4-year cycles again. It's very likely that Bitcoin will enter a complete unknown territory, a no man's land, okay? In which case we need to be very reactive rather than predictive. That's kind of the slogan I've used over and over again so far in the last year or so, or 6 months. I've been saying, this is a cycle in which we need to be reactive rather than predictive. The methods we use to predict price action, the 4-year cycle, have been deviated from. They're not invalid yet. They're not invalid, but they're kind of, the jury's still out on them, right? we need to be reactive because, we could see deviations that we've never seen before. We could see historical trends that have lasted throughout the entirety of Bitcoin's lifespan break. And therefore, we're not going to be able to predict. We're going to have to just react to what happens. And that very well will be the case if we do break 4-year cycle properly. Because right now it's not broken. We're just deviating from it. We're doubting it, but it's not broken yet. If we do actually break it, we do top out properly in this bull market, say in February next year. That's obviously not within the 4-year cycle's deadline or date range. Therefore, how do we know what's going to happen next? The only way we've ever seen Bitcoin price action is within the bounds of the 4-year cycle. Everything we know about how Bitcoin moves cyclically, historically, will be gone. We will be in a no man's land. I believe if that occurs, we'll most likely just follow traditional markets very closely. Maybe. It's hard to say. We don't know. If this does not follow a 4-year cycle, if we don't see a top in October 2025, the answer is it will be dramatically different because we won't have any of the binding structures that we've had previously to bind Bitcoin price action in a cyclical manner. It will be no man's land. There's no other word to describe it. No man's land. And that could be a good thing. It's not a bad thing. Just using that word no man's land, I feel like it has a negative connotation. It could be a good thing. It could allow for more regular bull markets. But it will certainly be more sporadic. We won't be able to predict it. So guys, I'll be ending off the video there. I think we got through a decent number of questions and very useful insights there in those answers, I think. So let me know what you think of the video. Let me know what you think about the Bitcoin charts. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed. Before we end it, go ahead and check out the Crypto Academy. Okay, this is a educational TA course teaching you how to trade, developed by myself and Megaworld Crypto, who's another YouTuber in this space. We work quite closely together, and we worked very closely together to develop this course. So if you're interested in learning how to trade, that's where you can do it. Obviously, as well, as we mentioned, BitGet, BingX, Bitunix, good exchanges. My referral links are down below for 15% trading fee discounts. And of course, the altcoin trading signals on the VIP group. Check that out if you're interested. Thank you for watching, guys. Hope you enjoyed. I'll catch you tomorrow. Cheers.